Hi, and welcome everyone to Ethereal Encounters Unveiled. Today we are broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 on the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM in beautiful New Orleans. Hello, everyone. I see we have some people in the chat already. I will be sure and say hello to you guys. Today, we have a really exciting show. I love the person, the guest who's with us today, and the topic. So again, welcome to Ethereal Encounters Unveiled. And of course, a big shout out and thank you to United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, as you heard in the intro. So we're going to be talking about the hitchhiker effect, and possibly we're going to see if we can dip into the stone tape theory as well. There's a strange idea floating around the edges of paranormal research, and that idea challenges the classic haunted house story that most of us grew up with. Traditionally, we think about paranormal activity as something like tied to a place, like an old house, a battlefield, a hospital, somewhere with a heavy history. But what if that phenomenon isn't always anchored to a location? What if it sometimes follows the people who encounter it? Researchers call this the hitchhiker effect. It's the idea that after someone has a powerful paranormal encounter, strange events can begin to happen in their home, around their family, or even around people who come into contact with them, which sends shivers down my spine. Reports range from shadow figures and poltergeist activity to electronic disturbances, vivid dreams, unexplained synchronicities. In other words, the encounter may not end when you leave the location. It might just be the beginning. So tonight, we're going to be diving into that mystery. And of course, joining us is paranormal researcher and experiencer Michelle Desrochers, who has spent years exploring the strange world of hauntings, consciousness, and the lingering effects that paranormal encounters can have on anyone. Michelle, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's a pleasure. I love hanging out with you. We always have such great conversations.
Yeah. Oh, always. On and off.
It's
On
true.
and off screen. Yeah.
It's true.
Brilliant.
Adventures, Caroline. We have
adventures.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, let's just say hello to some folks because I always, love to do that. Let's see who's here. Hello, Kara and Wayne. How you doing there, Wayne? Always good to see you. And who else do we have in here? Heidi, Star Sister. Always good to see you, my dear friend. A Taurus, Girl Reads. So good to see you too. Who else do we have? Well, we'll keep saying hello to people as they pop in. Okay. So, let me get your banner. I always forget that, and that's such an important thing. Okay. So, I thought about this topic for a while. It was like just in the back of my brain because, we're always reading about it and hearing about these things. And I'm going to tie it into like what's going on in my home right now, Michelle. You can let me know whenever you want to pop into that and connect the dots. But I am having a hitchhiker kind of thing going on. So you let me know when you want to pop into that conversation because
go crazy.
It's definitely connected. So the hitchhiker effect is such a fascinating topic because it turns like the classic horror story, inside and out, haunting story. Like instead of a location being haunted, the strangeness seems to travel with the witness, right? Correct. So this opens up the door to so many questions like consciousness, environment, belief, and possibly the unknown mechanics of reality. So like, let's dive in and you tell me how you would define the hitchhiker effect and what experiences you've dealt with in your work.
It's so funny because with the hitchhiker effect as a term I heard coined with the whole Skinwalker Ranch thing. And I found it really fascinating because when you start getting into that, it's like, God, where have I heard that? Things have been attaching and following me around for ages. And it never had like a buzzword or term for it. But Robert Bigelow often talked about
Yes.
it. He was the owner, right, of the Skinwalker Ranch.
Yeah, I
And
got the clip.
yeah, and he said it didn't really seem to matter, where things came from. He said he sold it because of the hitchhiker effect. It terrified
Crazy. Yeah.
yeah, and it terrified government officials apparently. So, he basically was very disturbed by it. He said it affected him, and it's a reason that he sold. He describes the phenomenon of just following people home, people who have been there, all of these strange events, like you say, the poltergeist activity, personal disturbances, and it continued long after he left the
Yeah.
property well, because it wasn't just UFOs. There was something more that was there, and it latched on, and these are his terms. It was something that latched on and wouldn't let go.
Oh,
So, I mean, if it scares you enough to sell one of the most interesting active properties,
yeah.
right? But the
Yeah.
stuff in I mean, the type of things I worked in within I always say within my studies, because I've always considered myself a student despite what people see on TV. No such thing as experts, okay? But anyway, that's a whole other show. Realistically speaking, it was like things have followed me home even before, like, I won't just say before or after I've been to a location, most certainly after, but things would rear their heads before I even went to a location. Because I would deal with darker entities or energies,
Mm.
and they would seek me out, like, anybody who thinks that you have to be in a location in order to get the activity, you do not,
Oh,
because these things would come and try to make their presence known to me to try to keep me from going
yeah,
to
yeah.
that location, and I would still go. One incident was a family I was dealing with, and she gave me some of the characteristics of what to expect with this specific energy, and it was a knocker. They would always knock in the threes all the time, and
Mm.
I'm in my ensuite getting ready. I'm just getting ready to go, and this thing's like I hear this 3 knocks on my bedside table. It was all marble on the top, so it was a heavy boom, 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 right? It wasn't like wood. It had like that stone feel to it, which may not have
Mm.
helped. May not have helped getting the whole stone thing. But anyway, I just walked out, grabbed my purse, and I said, "I'll see you in an hour, mister." And that was it. I just
Oh,
hightailed it out
jeez.
because I really do feel that if you don't, it's not that you don't feel unnerved, but if you show and if you give it to them, they're going to basically they're gonna do it more. And when I got there, you could hear it just growling at me while I'm
Oh,
there. I'm just like, because I'm not there for it, I'm there for the family. I don't care what it has to say. I don't care
yeah.
how upset it is or what it's got going on. I'm there for the family. The support is for the family, right? But when you leave, oh, it did follow. It did
Jeez.
follow.
That is
100%.
horrifying.
Oh, I've had many of them follow. I think I've told a story before where I've been on the show and I woke up, I opened my eyes and I knew where it came from. It was a different location. And I opened my eyes. I knew something had come in. I went downstairs and it was probably the typical time, between 3 and 3:30 in the morning. And I walked downstairs and I looked. I had this big leather lazy boy, but it's pitch dark and the chair is black. The term
Yeah.
blacker than black. And it sat in the chair and I could see this form just sitting
Oh,
there. Couldn't
God.
make it out clearly, but I could see a form and it was kind of going "Arr, arr," like it was grunting.
How lovely.
Again, so inside I'm thinking, okay, what are you going to do with this, right? So
Oh,
I stood up and I walked away and I said, "Don't let the door hit you on the way out." And I went back upstairs. And I heard behind me this loud, like a popping sound, like a "Ooh," just like that. It was so loud. And I was just like, okay, that was a bit intense. But I came over time because I spent time at this location. Um, Over time, I had many, many experiences with it. It had not the first time that it had been there. Knew it wasn't gonna be the last time. I used to actually get phone messages. I've got recordings of them. It's crazy. It's just big growly thing and just it was like, a love-hate relationship. I said, "Oh, would love to hate me." This is like pretty much how it went, but it wasn't an uncommon thing back then, and it didn't have this term, the hitchhiker effect, which makes so
Yeah.
much sense, but it's like
Yeah.
many people within this field have been you know, dealing with this sort of stuff and not even in the field. Just, wrong place, wrong time. People as youths playing with Ouija boards or being around
Yes.
people who did play with and I say it's not the board that was the issue so much as it was the invitation. The board is
Right.
a tool that you use that makes it easy to extend an invitation. You don't need it. You
Mhm.
could do it in your head. Just show a curiosity is all it really takes. And people, when they would call me in later life as adults, and I'm just like, "Well, did you ever put out any invitations?" They're like, "No." I said, "You never played with a board or anything as a kid?" They're like, "Oh, yeah, but that was 30 years ago." I've dealt with 2 people in my life who were 50 plus years of craziness as haunted people. No matter where they went, they were followed. I said, "These things have staying power. They're not bound by time or space, or they'll outwait you, get you at the right moment in your life." You know? So
Two questions. The knocking thing on the marble, you said, and I've heard that so many times. It's in the scratches or three in groups of threes. It's
Mhm.
always, is that really mocking the Trinity, the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost? Is that what they
Well,
say?
it's what they
Like,
say. Yeah, it's what they say. Again, if you're dealing with because I've dealt with families from all walks of life, not necessarily, Christian families, but, I've dealt with Muslim families, I've dealt with Buddhists, I've dealt with, like a wide array of people, agnostics, people don't believe in anything. So I guess if it's the Trinity, they're not really if they don't follow the faith, they're not really looking at it as the Trinity sort of thing. It's just a 3 knock, but
mm,
that is the belief, yes.
that's crazy. Because I again, when you watch these paranormal shows, it's always like scratches in groups of threes, and just that seems to be the thing. Freaky stuff.
There's a lot of things that pertain to that too, like you're getting into like scratching sounds, popping sounds,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
crackling, and usually, there's a belief that they're just sort of kind of tearing through, or trying to like tearing through the veil or
Yeah, yeah.
or just trying to manifest. And a lot of times when you hear the crackling sounds, if you look and if it's dark enough, you'll see almost like I always say it's almost like static lights.
Yeah, yeah.
It just kind of just sparkles while it's happening.
Yeah, yeah. Do you
So
think
it's
antagonizing them is not always the best thing to do? Because again, you watch these paranormal shows and some of them think that's how they do it. They antagonize and some of them don't. Like, do you
mhm.
ever have fear when you antagonize them?
I don't antagonize. I stick I mean, I'm sure what the way I behave is antagonistic. I just don't give up the fear. I was always I mean, I come from a family who's very, who had mediums, and my grandfather would say things like, you could have the fear, but don't give it away?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
and
yeah.
I'm not the only person who deals this way, but when I say, "Okay," I pick up my purse, I say, "I'll see you in an hour, mister," and I keep going, I mean, I had somebody pick up the phone on me one time. I was on hold at this one location that I was working with. I heard her go down the back servant staircase. It was an old home, and she goes, "I just have to get the post guy. He's right here. I wanna send this out, right? I don't wanna miss it." So she just laid the phone down, and then something you could feel something touch the phone, and something growly came through the phone.
Oh, nightmare.
Called me in no uncertain terms a big C word. And
Oh,
the bet
what?
there's the first time I ever actually heard something, and, again, I could hear her talking to the post person, and she's only in the house. The dogs are going crazy in the background. And the
Mm.
best I could come up with is, "You have a potty mouth." I did not
So
know how to react.
you're not really
No,
antagonizing, you're just not
it's the best I
showing
could
your
come up with, Carol Ann, at
right.
the time. I was so shocked. I didn't really know what I was supposed to say or do. I was just sort of like, "Oh, that's just wrong," in my mind. And, again, you know, it was the first time I was ever confronted with something like that. So, I just sort of stayed of the mind that, I held my ground. I didn't challenge in that way. I never made that invitation of, "Show me, show yourself to me," all that nonsense. I don't do that because that's an invite.
Yeah, yeah. Did you
Careful what you
notice
wish
any
for.
patterns, like, with people that you've helped and worked with that have experienced the hitchhiker effect? Did every case have a specific pattern to it that you were able to easily say, "Okay, I know this isn't like an oppression, it's not,
Mm,
a possession, it's
mhm.
really this hitchhiker effect." Like, is there a pattern that you saw repeatable?
Well, again, it's hard to say, is there a pattern? I didn't deal in typical, um, some people just want to do friendlier locations. They want to just try to get a good interactive relationship going with the spirits of the home, much like what Wayne had at the house, right? And the spirits were very, very interactive. But I would have to first thing I would say is, "Where were you last?" Like, "Has this happened before? Where were you last?" Were you with somebody who likes to,
Yeah.
go, on ghost tours or things like that? Because it could just be a spirit individual. So based on the location they were at, because I my God, if I had a dollar, as they say, for every person who said, "Well, I was on a haunted walk," or, "I was, at a haunted location for an event," or um, things of that nature, then you're like, okay, well, there's obviously something that they may just be curious about with you. If you're an intuitive, it's almost like you're this light in the darkness that a
Yeah, I was
spirit
just gonna ask.
knows. Yeah, they know that they could reach out to you. And sometimes where it gets tough is people are that light and they don't necessarily know it because they're not practicing mediums, for
Right.
example, or they don't acknowledge the ability, but the spirit doesn't care. And it gets like that with children because children are just like,
Oh,
"No, I don't
yeah.
wanna have a conversation with you, like, you're wigging me out." And it could just be a spirit in trouble or a spirit that just needs to be told, "Okay, no, like, you're deceased, move on." If a spirit is attached to a location, chances are they're hitchhiking over to you, for various reasons, whatever it is about you that draws them to you. But if they're attached to a location, it's usually for a reason, and it's usually where they'll return for a spirit person.
That's gonna be, I think, a good segue into what's going on here.
Okay.
But, Heidi said she recently had a voice tell her that she was expressing gratitudes, and it said, "No one is going to heal you." I could say bitch, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Never have I ever heard anything derogatory. Wow, Heidi, that is so what did you do, Heidi, after you heard that, if you don't mind me asking? Is that common, Michelle, where people like that are hearing these derogatory comments made? Like, you've heard them. You've
Mhm.
heard growls, you've heard the guy call you names, the ghost, right? Spirit call
Oh,
you.
I was an entity.
Yeah. Oh,
Wasn't a
geez.
spirit person. No,
Yeah.
no. No, I mean, you do hear that, and you have to factor in where it comes from. Like, when I hear a voice, I try to see, my researcher brain kinda goes into check. It's like, "Do I have any smells with that? Do I have? Is there any specific sounds with that?" What, like,
Mm,
go through that in my mind 'cause I'm just like, "Is this a spirit person?" Sometimes you don't get it. They don't remain in your space. Sometimes I'm just out and you can hear something, and that's it. So you're there is no environment per se for me to try to, it's like, "Where did you come from?" And it could have been somebody I met earlier in my travels that day, you know? You have to factor in when, especially when you factor in the whole loosh thing, there are things out there that feed off of energy. And for some reason, it goes back to Monsters Inc. The fear factor generates the type of energy that they like, even
Yes.
though the happy laughter factor, energy would give you more energy, but it's not the kind of energy they want. So factor in how many people are here on good old planet Earth. Factor in that there's as many and probably a heck of a lot more on the other side. And they're not all moved on. There are a lot of grounded spirits. There are a lot of elementals. There are a lot of, as we know, in some cases, there are a lot of extraterrestrials, or just I think I basically say just other races of beings
Right.
who thrive on this sort of thing as well. So then you're getting into, the demonic realm, or you're getting into other ethereals that are kind of in the in between. There's so many different variables. It's not as cut and dry as people think.
Gosh, and it's almost sad. It's like, what chance do we stand? I mean, that's why it's like so important to do grounding, right? Grounding
Oh,
technique every day, right? Just like you
you
get
know
up in the
what?
morning.
Yes. Yes. Grounding is very helpful. I'll always say live, love, laugh,
Mm,
positive vibes. It's about keeping your vibration so high. When I say vibration, it's just your energy. Just keep it high. Starve them. If you're not enticing, they're not necessarily, not that they won't try, but if you're not enticing and they're just going to starve, then you're not going to be the target. Just imagine if everybody just started feeling more enlightened and lighthearted, and they
yes,
end up, right? I mean, that goes into the collective consciousness. You're going to starve a whole lot of things out there. That's a big
so
part of
true.
it. When I work with people, it's the first thing I do. Hug a tree. I'll say, dance, watch a funny movie, play some
Yes.
music, open the windows, get some fresh air in. Some people have gone as far as having ghost gardens because apparently there's certain flowers and stuff that you can get that spirits or energy just don't like. First time I
Oh, I
heard
never
that, I
heard
thought,
that.
I read that one time. I'm like, that's crazy. And then I started reading more and more, and people actually did it. They believed it protected the house, it grounded the energy of the house. There are so
Mm,
many different techniques that you can do to do that. But, some people will sage your house all the time or use like Palo Santo. They'll use something that they like, an odor they like, because you don't realize when you're having a bad day and you go into somebody's space or you
oh,
put yourself in front of them and you start belly aching at them, then you come back into that space even like 2 hours later, and you're
yes,
wondering why you feel full of angst, because you have that energy sitting there. If you don't get rid of it, it continues to sit there and it
it
keeps
does.
compounding, and then next thing you know, you're constantly agitated. It's just until you clear your
Gospel
space.
truth, Michelle. I mean, look at,
Yeah,
you could be driving in the car and you see these road rage people.
yeah,
That's definitely an example of that. Or go in the grocery store. Like I was in the lottery store the other day,
yeah,
and this woman asked me a question to help her with the lottery machine.
yeah,
And I was trying to help her from my heart, trying to devote time to help her.
yeah.
And she turned around and said something snarky to me just out of nowhere. And it like shocked me. And I said to her, all I'm trying to do is help you. And then that made her more agitated. And I just walked away. I said, this woman's not having a good day. Like her energy field was, you could just feel it. It was just, and that's a
Oh,
great example of that.
it is. It is. And it's so easy because I gave you some examples. It's so easy to fall into something because
Yeah.
I'm extremely high energy. And if you attack a member of my family or somebody I'm with, I'm very protective of my friends and family.
Yeah.
I am an aggressive enough personality that the whole store is going to know what you just did. And then I'll give you a little bit of love and light as I as I walk
Right,
through
right,
the
right.
area, you know. But I mean, it's not like you can't help it sometimes. And I know better. So I have to then go home or get in the car, ground my energy, and then I've got to try to clear the space. So I
But
am not
you're
perfect.
blessed that you could do that. And that's why I love shows like these, because that teaches other people how to protect themselves. Like you said,
Yeah.
there could be people walking around for decades not
Mhm.
knowing that this is their problem.
Yes.
Maybe they'll hear it and say, geez, I got to start grounding myself and protecting myself.
It
So
helps. It
it's,
really
it's very
helps.
helpful. So we're getting so many great comments and I've starred them.
Okay.
So
Yeah, go
yeah, I'm
ahead.
going to get to a lot of them. But Wayne said that he had a dark visitation while working in a building. Now he was just on, was it the Light Gate? What show was he just
He was
on?
on Paranormal Heart.
Oh,
Yes.
Paranormal Heart. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And I watched that. Was excellent, Wayne, too. I had a dark visitation while working in a building. It made me feel so volatile. After a while of this nonsense, I stopped and said, oh, yeah, I'll tell you something. I'm going to. That's good.
Perfect.
That's perfect. Did it stop, Wayne? Did it stop? I don't know. I didn't read if he posted that it stopped. That's funny. That's good. I like attacking it with the little levity. That's always interesting.
Yes.
So I've been, and Michelle, you can kind of guide this conversation, please. I've been, for the first time in my life, I have this type of severity going on in my home. I've always had
Mhm.
little things like I would hear voices or some calling my name, things that didn't scare me like that. Like one time I was on a podcast with Laura Lee. I think it was her or Carrie Lynn. No, it was Carrie Lynn. Maybe it was both. And we were talking about spirits and all that wonderful stuff. And then Joey came in the conversation, and all of a sudden, the back of my chair went boom, and you could see it nudge. And I thought that was wonderful. Like that didn't scare me at all because I knew it was Joey, right? Who, for
Yeah.
folks that don't know, my husband passed away. His name was Joseph.
Yeah.
So yeah, stuff like that didn't scare me, but this particular thing that's been going on has me scared and concerned. And of course, I discussed it with you, and you can kind of take it from there. And I don't know, is that
Mhm.
the hitchhiker effect, you think? I think it's like a kind of a good example of that, no?
No, for sure. Because as we delved into it a little bit more, um, you made mention of things happening within your area
Yeah.
and so on. So we kind of got a handle on the different, spirits, what happened to them, um, and what their likely situation was. So is it one of those things that A, they're trying to get your attention because you're that light in the darkness, or they're just in the neighboring condo and you are
Right.
you are getting the after effect of what's happening in there because it's still the same family member, right? That you have that's one of the spirit's family
Yes.
member.
Several deaths
So,
took place in there. And
yeah.
is that the hitchhiker effect? So you're here minding your own business,
Mhm.
and someone next to you is experiencing something awful. And maybe these entities, spirits don't know that they're in the wrong place. Like, how
They're
does
divided
explain
by
that?
a wall. They're
Yeah.
not bound by the physical. That wall doesn't really technically exist to them. Like, it's not
Right.
hard to get
Right.
through it. They can, you know so, I mean, you have a spirit that may be just trying to get your attention, maybe looking for assistance,
Ah,
maybe
yes.
maybe if that spirit may have had an attachment, and for some of the things that you're saying, the person associated to that spirit who passed on and the way that person passed on, that could
Yes.
very much have been an attachment situation, and they hitchhike. Like,
Ah,
when you talk hitchhiking, there's people I've heard people, in the who deal with demonic things go, "Well, they hitchhike. They can, they'll bring in friends and then they'll hitchhike. They'll attach to you and they can attach to another 5 plus people,
mm,
however many they want at the same time simultaneously." I've heard this term used with mediums when they're for example, when you're doing a forum reading and you have a medium saying, "Okay, I'm picking up on this," and a person stands up, and next thing you know, there's a spirit hitchhiking on that spirit because they're like,
mm.
"Okay, I'm here next to you, and my person's right there, so I'm going to also," right? So there's that sort of thing as well. So yes, things can hitchhike around. So you're in this space collectively, and there is nothing that's keeping them from going wherever they want to. And if you're aware of it, or let's say you frighten easily, or if you're vulnerable and being in grieving mode,
Yes.
that would make you vulnerable,
Yes, big
where it
time.
would be, "Oh, okay, I can put this person on edge and get a little bit of loose in the whole scheme of things." So you
Spot
see,
on.
yeah, it's like a snowball effect. Like it's, you can walk down to the
It's so
grocery store
weird.
and just peeve off an old lady, who might have
Yeah,
an attachment of her own.
it's so true. And the sound, it's weird because it happened about 6 times now, random. There's no rhyme or reason to it. And it sounds like I have a big mirror in my foyer, and it sounds like the mirror fell and crashed to the floor. It's that loud, and that's startling. And it's always that sound. It's always that repeated sound. So maybe it's like an attention, like you said before, maybe they're trying to get my attention for something.
It sounds a little
Hell,
bit
or
stone tape too, where you could have a
yeah.
residual sound. So you have to ask yourself, how long have I been in this location? Has
Mhm.
this sound been happening the entire time? If not, when did it happen? Did it happen after this person next door passed away? Or did I move into this place and it was happening immediately?
Right.
Because now you're looking at two different types of things. But that's a sound. A sound you can easily say is more stone tape, it's more residual. Um, Whereas, let's say, taps going on and off. Well, this is a physical
That's
thing
been
that's happening.
right,
That's
that's
a
been
different
happening.
thing. Yes.
Right, because 'cause that's been
Yes.
happening too,
Yes.
weirdly enough.
Because the mere crashing sound, what does that do? It unnerves you. And when you get unnerved, what
Yes,
do?
big time.
You put out
Yep,
that energy, which makes it, okay, good. I'm gonna get a little bit of this. Now, if you're sharing that wall with the other location mentioned, who is for sure 100% experiencing everything. They have to be. There's no way you'd be experiencing it and the person who is attached to the spirit isn't
couldn't be.
experiencing it.
Yeah,
So are
no.
you just getting that, is it sound like it's right there in your space, or does it sound like maybe it could be behind that wall? And
Mm,
there's the projection of sound that ethereals can leave.
it's
Eh,
crazy.
well, yeah, it's quite profound. Like
It really
it's just,
is.
yeah.
It's astonishing. Like, the first time I heard it, I honestly thought something fell off my wall.
Mhm.
And I went to every room, even bathrooms, checking to see, and everything was so I just wrote it off. Like, the first one scared me because I thought something fell. So I was
Mhm.
just alarmed. But then after that, when I heard the second and the third and the fourth, and then the water going on and off, I'm like, uh-oh,
Mhm.
this isn't good.
I know,
This is not
see?
good. Yeah.
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 So, again, you just have to ask yourself, "When did this all start? Am I the first person to own this space?"
Yes. Yes.
Okay,
Right.
so you are right. If I'm not, then, okay, who was here before, or am I having a
Right.
crossover? So, it's a
Yeah.
really broad term. Like, the hitchhiker thing falls into many different aspects within the field of high strangeness. I think when Robert Bigelow started coining it, it's something that exists. Things latch on to you. The hitchhiker thing latches onto you and follows you. It can happen, with in the extraterrestrial world as well. I think a lot of it is what happens here.
Mm.
I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
Someone that I knew very well, very close to, going back three decades, couple decades, came on a ghost tour with me, and there was one area that was very, very. It was a dark energy there, and she kept emphasizing it. I'm like, I don't think you want to do that. Just let it go, let it go. And she said, "Oh, okay." She goes, "I don't usually feel things this intense." I'm like, let it go. So I already know this energy. I'm like, let it go. So I end up the next day getting a call and said my cat attacked me. This cat loved her. This
Mm.
cat went full on crazy, lunged at her,
Oh, no.
and tried to attack her. So I went over and I'm standing there. This cat is airborne, coming for her. I put my hand up, catch it midair, grab it, put it down on the couch, and I'm holding it steady. And I just looked right into that cat's eyes, and that cat, I completely, I mean, it just
Wow.
glazed over. Like I was just like, okay, this is interesting. But it got so bad. Again, it worked with that energy, but it kept happening. It kept happening. Like I was definitely, let's say, more new to all of that back then than I am now.
Yeah.
Now it would be an entirely different situation. But it was a very, very difficult situation because people don't think that animals can become
Mm.
the victims, but they're the silent victim. Like an animal will
Oh,
tell you if there's
goodness.
something wrong. They'll tell you there's something in your space. But what if whatever is wrong attaches to the animal who cannot speak for itself?
Oh, how sad.
It's a place to hide.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh my goodness. What happened to that poor kitty after a while? Was it okay? Did you
Eventually,
visit?
no, eventually it was just trying to hurt itself. Like it was just like throwing itself at things. Like eventually, went to the vet and the vet said, well, it's something neurological. And there was only one option, and she was put
Yeah.
to sleep,
Yeah.
which just was devastating.
Yeah, yeah.
But there was never a problem before, neurological or
Yeah.
not. What spiked it even? I'm not saying possessed, I'm not saying anything like that, but I'm just saying something within that moment affected this poor cat, and if it was neurological, something just went like this and never the same. And tried,
So sad.
many
I've
vet
heard that
visits, many
happening.
different things.
Yeah, I've heard that there was a haunted barn once, and these poor horses were
Versus
victim of that.
Yep,
Yeah.
because they can't they can't speak for themselves. I've heard so many stories over the years of people who have had their animals killed by malevolent entities,
Yeah.
who have been tormented, picked up, thrown, everything.
Oh my
Whenever,
goodness.
clearings would take place, with the team and I at the time, um, we always asked to include the animals in photographs and things like that because we've just through the last 20 plus years, I've seen so many different scenarios. And I always say, watch your pets. If they feel like they're in fear all the time, there's something wrong. Sometimes
Yeah.
they will alert you and they'll go, like
Yeah.
fully aggressive. And cats, on an average, they'll say that they protect the home. But in some cases, it comes with a cost. The cats are like crazy. They'll
Well, they're
just
so
say,
intuitive. I mean, that's why the
yeah,
Egyptians worshiped them,
yes,
because they knew.
yes,
So
yes.
sad. What
And
about
so
children?
oh,
I no, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, I was gonna say some people actually bring dogs and such to investigations for that
Yeah,
reason
yeah.
but again, it's always a word of caution with that. But children, they're like natural little psychics, of course.
Yeah.
They see everything. And it's really difficult because, like we were just saying, when it comes to being that light in the darkness, because a child is so intuitive, a spirit comes to the child because they're drawn to that light that they have. And the child isn't often versed enough to say,
Mm.
"You're dead, move on," or "Leave me alone," or they become very fearful. And some of them have very, very good imaginary friends, like if your family comes to them and such. I
Yes.
remember a family member sending me a video of their little one, and the little one was just sitting in the corner by a rocking chair laughing, and he had his little hands up like he was just having a great time, and I'm just like, "All right, that's interesting," but it's benign. It's
Yeah,
definitely benign,
exactly.
but but children become targets because children are easy to frighten, they're easy to trick. I've worked with many families where everything was centered around the child, and, I've worked with families where babies were thrown out of their cribs. I've worked with families where, you have a 4 or 5-year-old child, are right at that prime age because they can speak, and they start
Mhm.
describing to you what they're seeing, and you realize pretty early on, it's hard because they will make that invitation thinking they're playing with another child.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
and when it says invitations are made, it really makes it a little bit more difficult because the entity in question is just like, "I was invited." "Ah, but you tricked
Exactly.
your way in." It's a
Right.
lot of reverse psychology that comes in at that point, and, trying to get a child to rescind on that. So, you know
Yeah. Do you think it's a good idea? Well, let me phrase it this way. I have a hard time going to cemeteries. I
Mm,
just do. The minute I walk on the grounds, I just can't even
mhm.
handle it. Do you think it's a good or maybe not a good idea to take children to cemeteries, like to visit their loved ones, being so
Mm.
susceptible? Because I've heard also that most spirits entities don't really hang out there.
No.
Is that true? Or
Yeah, yes. I mean, where you might run into that is if you have a spirit that doesn't know he's passed for some reason. Some spirits want to stay with the body, you know,
yeah,
just
why?
if they're in a confused state, perhaps. But on an average, they will go to the places that made them happy, where they had family or maybe a job they really liked, or back to the place of their death. That's why you get a whole other type of hitchhiker thing, right? On the
Mm.
highways where somebody passed away, and
Yeah,
like
yeah,
you hear a lot of those kind of stories. I think with the cemeteries, um, there are various things. You have people who go there grieving. They're talking about that energy again. So
yeah,
you have these other ethereal beings that aren't so kind who feed off that energy and will sometimes attach to these people. I have
right.
heard reports through my years of people seeing things like, elementals or gargoyles. I've heard, "Oh, there's a gargoyle that was just sitting on a tombstone." I was like, "Okay, whatever," But I mean, I think you stand more of a chance of seeing, some residual stuff, or you may have I remember, doing a ghost tour, and there was a spirit couple that walked through a cemetery, and
Mhm,
it was crazy because everybody saw them. Normally, when you take photos, you catch them on a camera, but people
yeah,
weren't capturing them on the camera this time. Everybody was taking pictures. But everybody saw them with the naked eye. They would just walk through hand in hand or like arm in arm, and then
yeah,
she had her hand around his arm, and then all of a sudden, they just faded away. Very benign, never happened before, and never happened since when I was doing a tour, because I would lead the tours, and never saw it after that. But it was a really haunted area, not that it was the cemetery. Long before the cemetery, there was, like, a lot of indigenous land and such, and this looked
yeah,
like a Victorian couple, so that was
yeah, yeah.
older,
Well,
so
maybe if they know you're visiting, could they pop in and
Mhm,
just because, like,
sure.
you
Yep,
said they never came again, or before that, it sounds
yeah.
like they intentionally popped in to see you, right, Michelle?
Yeah, they might have, or it could have just been something well, I won't say residual because, of all the many years of doing the tour, we never saw them. It just doesn't mean it didn't happen when there was no tour. So it's very, very possible. I think if people are also grieving and they go, if you let your loved ones know, they may come to you in that moment. But I think the cemeteries are more for us.
Yeah,
Like, we need to feel like that we feel close to them somehow because they're interred there. But again, if you go someplace that meant something to you, for example, for you and Joey, you go to that place and you just sit there, you're going to have it
yeah, just
probably
for you.
even
Yeah,
stronger because it's a stronger energy because of what it meant to each of you at that time.
yeah, yeah, definitely, I agree with that. Now, the stone tape theory, I thought, tied in kind of well to this, even though it's not a hitchhiker effect.
Mhm.
But for some, like, I've heard stories of, even though they're not interacting. Well, let's explain what that is first for folks that don't know, Michelle.
Well, a stone tape is something that is I always say it's like a tape recorder. It's the best way to do it. It's a residual imprint of energy. You ever hear about these residual hauntings where you have this white lady who runs down the hall of this old hotel, jilted, jumps out of a window, same time,
Mm,
every day, or sometimes it's the day of the death. They relive the whole thing,
right.
right? There's all kinds of things like that in the Tower of London with Anne Boleyn, where she has been spotted running down the same hallway, screaming, looking for her head, right?
Jeez.
But yet there have been other reports, and to my knowledge, it's not something that happened a whole lot, came from a guard who was working at the Tower of London, and he heard some commotion. He saw these lights, and he looked into a chapel type area, and he saw this entire procession of people dressed in all of these gowns,
Wow.
and leading this procession was Anne Boleyn with her head. And
Wow.
we're talking people of her time. Like, it
Yeah.
was a grand affair is how he described it. It was just like, and then he just looked away and never saw it again because he worked there every night.
So,
So
but stone tape repeats. It can repeat or it
yeah,
can be just
yeah.
occasionally, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, when stone, first of all, it's a crazy thing. I know it's just like the stone tape, it's like the recorder thing. But what I like to mention of with hauntings and things, when you have things like quartz or limestone underneath the building, even running water like rivers, it will amplify that energy. And if you go back to things like cathedrals, round rooms,
Right.
stone, made of stone. People sing, the choirs go and all this incredible singing with this an unbelievable energy being projected
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
And what happens is people have heard that. So modern time, fast forward, and you sit there and you sit down in these old churches, and I know when I've traveled the world, I visit old castles, old churches,
Mm,
cathedrals, like, I love the architecture, and you sometimes will hear it, and people have taken voice recorders to test that theory and heard music playing in the
wow.
background. This is why, when you're doing EVPs, like the tape recorder, they
Right.
can speak into it, even if it's residual. Why is that?
That is
Right?
amazing. We have a question from Michelle. She says, my question with stone tape is, do you think or know if the person's consciousness or soul or experience is attached to the energy of it?
Well, yeah, I think it's just for one example, and people are alive when they go to a church and they're singing. And these old cathedrals, of the ancient world, and even the ones that you find here, obviously, but I go back in time because, some of these places that have been reported to do it are places that are like 3, 4, 500,000 years old. Like even the Knights Templar, circular rooms, right? Chanting,
Mm,
like you would get this imprint. And there's something about the stone that the energy, it just imprints onto it. So I don't want to say attached. I would prefer to go with the imprinted. Like,
yes,
it
I like
somehow
that.
it imprints. And when we're talking about the hauntings, let's explore and look at it this way. The amount of energy, we are energy within a physical body. When
Mhm.
the physical leaves the body for the last time, it lets off so much energy that it will leave an imprint in time and space. It will leave an imprint. In fact, there are cases where people have passed away and people hear like a sonic boom
Mm,
that happens. And I remember reading a story about, it was in I don't know, it was in it was a small town. So when this person passed away, when they heard this boom and they looked
mhm.
at the precise time of when this boom was heard, one woman came forward and she says, "That's so odd. My grandmother died exactly at this time."
Wow.
And it's not the first time I've heard this, when somebody passing away and projecting out this intense amount of energy. And let's go into ancient artifacts, pottery. There was a bowl found. I think it went back to Roman times, and it had these little ridges in it. Somebody, they I I'm not quite sure how the experiment went, but it was like playing an album. So I think they might have been done even with water kind of going around, not to damage it. And there was like a sound that came from it.
Wow.
Not just like a turning sound, but they said it almost sounded like voices or music in the background.
Like it recorded it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes,
I
exactly.
totally believe that.
Energy transference is
Yes.
probably the best way to put it. Energy transference.
And to your point, Wayne says there have been clay vessels that have been created on potter's wheels, and there are small grooves. That's just what you said. And the grooves
Yeah.
apparently contain bits of,
Yeah.
yeah, that's crazy.
Potter's voices. Yeah, there you go.
Wow, I never heard of that.
Mhm.
So, like, they knew that that would record. I wonder how they knew these things.
Well, I don't know that they did. I just think in later years, just somebody kinda stumble onto it.
Stumbled on, yeah.
And I'll give you another example. You know, I dated this guy a million years ago. We were together for several years, and I was very, very close to his mother. When his Before she passed, she was very, very enlightened, and she says, "Whichever one of us goes first, and it'll probably be me because 'cause I'm old," and she would laugh. She was only, like, at the time, like, maybe 45. Anyway, she said, "We'll come back and leave a message for the other." I said, "Okay, that sounds great." And, you know, her sons would always go poo-poo it all the time, right? Well, she did pass away because her cancer came back, and she
Oh,
passed within a few days, like, it was very, very fast. And 2 weeks after that, I had these cats, and she always called them the fellas. They were these twin white cats. Anyway, I came home I was out, I came home, and he's sitting in this chair, and he's just really messed up. I'm going, "What's up?" You know, and he's going, "Can you just listen to the
mm,
voicemail?" Now, back then, it was all done on tape recorders. This was a mini
mhm.
cassette, right? So, that was high tech at the time, the mini cassettes instead of the big
Oh,
ones.
yeah,
Anyway,
I have that still.
right? Yeah, and so whenever a message would come in, it would beep, and then a message would come in and it would beep. She channeled through about 4 or 5 messages, and
Wow.
what was interesting was she left it on the machine, and you could hear this faint, faint music because it can ride the waves, and
Mm.
it was radio, and so she could hear the radio in the background, and it beeped, and it began more radio, and it beeped, and then in her voice, in the end, her voice was very strained, and she just said, "Hello, fellas," with a very strained
Oh
voice,
my goodness.
and then it beeped another couple of times with the music in the back, and then it stopped, and he goes, "Tell me who that is." I went, "That's your mother." And he's like, I said, "She said she would come back and leave a message for
And there
me.
she
This
went.
was the deal we
Yep.
had," and she did, and she came through many times years later, after that as well. So you see how this energy transference can go on as simple as a recording, and you think about when you do EVPs. This is why tape is always so interesting,
Yeah.
'cause when it imprints on tape, you know? So, but that's
But
just
the good thing is with the stone tape, you don't get attachments typically with them because
no,
it's again just that
correct. It's residual.
recording.
Yeah.
Right. But with the hitchhiker, that's where you got to worry. Like, I forget if I heard on your show, on a show we did, or I was watching your show, and you were talking about a woman who had an attachment around her heart. So, like some of these entities, because I don't think a spirit would do something malicious like that, right? Unless it was
Well
very angry. I
well, I'm
mean,
sure there are. Yeah, I'm sure there are.
yeah.
spirits
I
actually
guess if it was a
your
PO'd
your energy, you know, like,
right.
here's the thing as well, is to show you how powerful energy can be, is that you look at poltergeist activity. What do you think poltergeist activity is? People say, "Oh, it's German, it means noisy ghost." But what
Yeah.
do you think it actually is? It is a projection of energy somewhere in time. Like I like to use the ancient Ram Inn as a perfect example because it's
Mhm.
like what, 1200 years old. Like
Yeah.
the thing
Yeah.
is this place had a very aggressive poltergeist. Poltergeist is projected energy that it's just it come somewhere, it came from someone, you know, and it builds up over time. It gets stronger. And psychokinesis. Let's talk about you know, a woman going through puberty, or
Yeah.
or going through menopause, or a child going through puberty. You can project energy like nobody's business. You could project energy to open and close doors,
Yep.
footsteps, banging, the whole chair stacking thing. Was like, well, that's poltergeist activity. Well, yeah. So, you know, even the Enfield poltergeist for a while, they're just like, is this like a projected energy? They were just trying to, you know, to look at this girl saying you're projecting energy, right? From her, you know, for many different reasons, you know, the father leaving, like it just it built up over time. But,
Yes.
you know, there were many different aspects to that. So I don't like to specifically use it, but it seems to be, you know, a very similar story. Telekinesis, I mean, we are powerful beings. And when you project that energy, it goes out. That's why I say you project out energy, you come back a few hours later, walk into that spot that you've just gotten into an argument with somebody,
Yeah.
you know?
You could just be an unwitted victim of it. I saw
Yeah.
a video of Bruce Lee when he was I mean, that guy was amazing, and he was using his energy to, like,
Mhm.
back then, in videos, moving objects while he was alive. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, he's like
Bending
a great
spoons,
example. Yeah,
bending spoons. I know so many
yeah,
people who can bend spoons. It's like we're powerful beings. We don't give ourselves enough credit. And sometimes as you project energy, you become fearful because you think automatically that there's
mm,
something else there. You know, it's not like I haven't through the years gone into places and said, I don't feel anything. I mean, it was
yeah,
always one of the first questions I asked. Do you have anybody? How old are the children? You know, how old are you? Like, you know, looking at the woman of the house. And because when you're going through puberty for a boy or a girl, right? When you're going through puberty, or, you know, when you're going through a change of life, because
yes,
we have so many people to identify with, but we all go through changes of life, and that it's the emotion and the energy that comes out, and that itself is enough to create all kinds of activity around you. It really depends on how you are handling it internally. And that's why sometimes people become aware, and I'd say, well, psychokinesis. And they'd be just like,
right,
you know, and I'd be, no, seriously. And I said, you know, and I would send a link and I said, just see if you can, you know, relate to anything like within this article. And like, that's 100% me. And as soon as they come to the realization that I'm projecting this, it stops because they're in control completely of their emotions and their feelings, you know, whether they get
yeah,
counseling for it, or whether they're able to sort through it on their own. It really is sometimes that easy.
absolutely. Now regarding, like, UAPs, right?
Mm,
You know, I've spoken to a lot of ufologists that say that they contact it's generational. So, like,
mm,
it'll be their parents, their families. Isn't that
mhm,
kind of a hitchhiker thing? Aren't they hitchhiking to each generation?
mhm.
Like,
In a
you know,
way.
you had nothing to do with that, but your mom and or dad was an
Mhm.
abductee and had contact. So isn't that kind of doesn't it kind of traipse into the UAP arena as well?
I guess it could. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a generational contactee. You know, I go back to stories of my grandparents and great grandparents, and I'm sure it went on before that. You know, they apparently stay with different lines.
Yeah.
They will follow different lines, different bloodlines. And I'm sure it applies to, you know, I mean, there's so many of us on this planet now. I'm sure it applies to many different circumstances. But, the idea was that they would follow certain lines. And some of these lines now have gotten boof, 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 we've gotten so much bigger as a human race. So they do whatever it is they were studying at that time, they just continue to study it. So are they hitchhiking? Or, are we talking, about the same beings that have been there the whole time? I don't know. Good theory though.
Yeah, I just wonder about that. Because even talking to Preston, he
Yeah.
says that there are certain triggers to like grief. We talked about that.
Yes.
Um, and then he also said that they'll hitch to people that do a lot of philanthropic work.
Yes.
I never thought about that. I found that to be so interesting. So,
Mhm.
and then the ETs are very interested in people like that. So that's
Mm.
kinda like hitchhiking around, I guess. They're
I think
picking
it
and choosing.
well, for sure, but I think there's something about, we as individuals. Like, if you've never had a contact experience and you're thinking about one, it goes to show is it a collective thing?
Yeah,
People tend to get experiences. Look at the CE5s. For
right.
myself, like, I blocked out a lot. Like, I didn't really think about what happened to me as a child. I would talk to my mother before she passed and say, like, I was always a weird kid. Like, what did I do? And,
Yeah.
you know, and she filled in a lot of blanks, and she filled them in about, like, my grandfather as well, on her side. But then I find out that the whole other side also had experiences.
Wow.
Like, my father would tell me things saying, "Oh, yeah, my dad and I would see all this," and they were all negative blood types, so everybody, the whole
Ah,
family.
that's
Yeah,
amazing.
it's the whole family. It's not like, we're just because we marry into something or I mean, the 2 sides, both negative, found each other in a time where there were even less of them in the
Isn't that
world.
crazy?
Like, my going back to, like, grandparents, like,
Yeah.
and so obviously somewhere it was coming through, but, from my mom's from my grandparents down, and I don't know enough about those who came before them, but, we're all negative and it's still all negative.
Mm.
So, some people say, well, yeah, they follow that line as well, like the blood types is, but I can't tell you how many people with positive blood types I know who had incredible experiences. So I don't think you could really go by that either. I think if you're very enlightened, and I think if you do substantial things, I truly believe that putting things forward with your spiritual abilities and doing good for your fellow man, or doing good for the planet, or just doing
Yeah.
good, I think will attract them
Yeah.
more than somebody who's just sort of shut off with negative energy. I think you need to have an elevated energy to be able to connect with some of these beings. But it works on the flip side as well. When you have
Absolutely.
those maybe more malevolent beings, or, ETs, I think that those races thrive on a certain type of energy, and those are the ones they gravitate to. So I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
it's a balance, right?
But I agree, a lot of it is generational. Like my mother's mother was born in Ireland, and she was a witchy witch.
Yeah.
And I remember as a kid, she would tell me my Uncle Tony had passed away. And I remember being like 7, 8 years old, and she'd come in my bedroom and go, I just saw the Cochabawa, which is an Irish folklore.
Yeah.
It's a wagon that the dead ride to wherever
Yeah.
they're going to go. And
Yeah.
she'd come in and tell me, I just saw the coach with this heavy Irish brogue. Cochabawa with your Uncle Tony on there, and he's waving goodbye. And I'm thinking this is normal at 8, like that
Yeah.
you see dead people, you know?
Yeah.
But she
Yeah.
always did. She just was that, she was a witchy witch, and
Yeah.
she
I
was
love
able
that.
to see spirits. She loved it.
Yeah.
And my mom didn't mind her telling us, because she didn't tell us in a scary way. It was like a very,
Mhm.
this is what I want you to know about reality kind of way.
Yeah.
Like,
And I love
it was,
that.
yeah, it was really,
I love that. I
yeah.
do. But this is the kind of stuff that gets passed down and,
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, the stories, like, I love hearing stories that go back, like, I had grandmother, a great-grandmother who was a healer,
Oh,
and the
oh.
story goes, I think it was a great-grandma, the story goes, something got passed down through the family, which was a cure for the big C, for
Ooh.
a specific big C, and they sent it to a newspaper, and of course, it just disappeared, and it
Oh,
never
of
it never went
course,
out. Yeah,
of course.
yeah. So anyway, that was that. Um, but there's so many different reasons. We live in a very ethereal world, and I think it's important to
No.
realize we are not alone. We share space with so many other different beings, and we have
Yeah,
layers of dimensions within, the space is everything else. Like,
yeah,
we really have to be open-minded. But fear is the thing you have to put aside
yeah.
because that's what attracts the things you don't
I
want,
I
and the
just don't want
situations you don't want.
anything uninvited scares me. Like,
Mhm.
if you wanna communicate with your loved ones and you do you, that's wonderful. I don't like this neighbor thing,
Mhm.
uninvited, don't
Mhm.
want you here, you have no business here kind of thing. But like you
Just tell
said,
them they moved
sometimes.
on.
Huh?
Just tell them they moved on.
Yeah,
Like, if you're dealing with a human spirit, if they're behind, it's usually for, because A, they don't realize they passed on. B, it could be conditioning. Here's another example for somebody who takes their lives. If you're a conditioned person
yeah, yeah,
and you're told you can't take your own life, only your creator has the right to do that. So there's
correct.
that
Yep,
conditioning. Whereas if you can break away from that, like your fear, if you figure that I've taken my own life and I didn't have the right, I've been conditioned to think I'm going to some place that's going to be horrific.
exactly.
I'm going to take my chances and stay here. Whereas, sometimes all I've had to say is, you know, if they're expressing that fear, it's like, or let's say you broke one of the commandments, I coveted thy neighbor's wife. I'm a goner. I'm not moving.
Yeah,
So it's a
yeah.
matter of saying, your creator, your God is all loving and he is forgiving. And this is okay. You will be forgiven. If you're sorry, go ahead, move on. And they're like, oh yeah, okay. And sometimes it's that simple. If you don't realize you're
Wow.
dead, all you have to do is say, you realize you are deceased?
Mm.
And there are people waiting for you and wondering why you haven't gone to them. It's like, I'm deceased. God, okay. And they go and they realize they have family that is close by. It's the fear that drives people, and that fear remains. It's not the physical that makes us who we are. It's the essence. So if you pass with fear, if that fear and your belief system is what holds you,
Yes.
that there's so many reasons why spirits remain. If it's because of a place that or a thing that they're stuck to, I always use the example of farms because farms, I mean, my God, farms sustain people. You were land wealthy. You were
Yes.
not you were not wealthy. Many times you were land wealthy. You were born on the land, your land sustained you. You couldn't just go turn on a furnace. You had to cut wood from the land, put it in
Sure.
the
Yep.
fireplace, whatever the case may be. Like it was a whole array of things. You died on the land, you were buried on the land. When you died, the land was still your land. So, when you come in and a new family moves in, not realizing that you still have spirits there who still cherish and hang
Mm.
on to the land because it's what made you somebody. It's who you were. It's just,
Gosh.
it's things that we don't think about. And then a survey goes up and you've got, like 300 houses on the land, and then they're just like, you know, like there's a
That's such
whole
a
array of things.
perfect that is a beautiful and perfect example of
Yeah.
why an entity or entities would be attached to the land.
Well,
That is
human
perfect.
spirits. So they see
Yeah.
all these houses. Is that Hitchhiker? If they were there first? You see, there's so many variables that we have to explore. It's not cut and dry. None of it is cut and dry.
And that's why it takes years and years of doing that work, Michelle, right? To really be able to nail down what a situation is. There's a
It
lot of
helps.
analysis, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it helps. I think a lot of it is through trial and error. You know, I've worked with so many people, and I've heard so many different stories, and a haunting or a situation that may be hitchhiker or maybe
Mm,
residual, maybe a lot of it depends on us. Like, no 2 are the same. You may have similar characteristics, but we, the people, make it different because we are all different. How we
yeah.
react, what our conditioning, our backgrounds are, our energy. I mean, everything. We make it different. If you
Yeah.
have, something that you feel is hitchhiked, again, try to think, where did it come from? What's the reason? Like, I've helped you dissect this one with your
Yes.
experience to say, okay, let's back it up. Let's look at what's what. And then it gives you a place to start.
Oh,
But,
yeah.
in the end, you may never know what you picked up, or you may never know why
Exactly.
something has just wandered in. I always say during really bad storms, high winds, it's amazing the energy that just kind of flies in. And I'm not kidding. It just flies in, and people are like, God, I've got all this stuff going on. Well, a lot of some areas are noted for bad weather or strong winds. I said sometimes when I say things just blow in, they really do. They
Yeah,
they
yeah.
just sort of end up there for whatever reason, and it's just enough to say, look, they're not welcome here. My house, not your house. Don't know where you came from. You're deceased. I can't help you. And that's part of it. If you have a persistent spirit person, because you see your light, just say, I know you see something and you think I can help. I can't see you. I can't hear you. Sadly, I cannot help you. And I am sorry for that. I am not skilled enough to do this, so please just, if you can move
Move
on,
along.
look
Yeah.
look for the light, or look for whatever it is. Look for your loved ones is what I say. You have loved
Oh,
ones
that's
waiting.
nice.
Yeah, just please look for your loved ones. They are waiting. And then it's just like most times it just stops. It's
What
just
if it doesn't?
acknowledgement.
What do you recommend someone do that feels either, they have something hitchhiking around them or in their home, and they're trying to talk to it and reason with it, not working. Like, what
Mm,
should they reach out to a paranormal investigation in the
mhm.
area?
Yeah, you can always start out with a good medium, and it's just hard. Like, there's some exceptional mediums out there, and then there are those who are not so exceptional. You know,
Right.
I've never charged for my services in doing anything because, life gets hard and
Yeah.
people are just trying to pay their bills. This is not
Yeah.
something, but you know what? That's me. I've always had, a good enough livelihood that I can afford to do that. Not everybody can. And mediums is what they do. Mediums are like, no, this is my job. Many investigators, it's not their job. It's something that, we all have jobs, and then we all
Yeah.
do this and give of our time afterwards. So get somebody who's reputable. Don't be afraid to do your research. You're going to have good and bad in some cases. Just try to find the balance. Talk to people, see who you feel comfortable with. Why do I say avoid some of the social media groups? Because everybody has an opinion. What
Yeah.
worked for them may not work for you.
Right.
Deal with somebody who has dealt in many different situations, and move forward, with their area of knowledge. Try to see how long someone's been around. Some
Yeah.
people
Good
can help you
point.
remotely, some people can't. And I mean, I have to say, like, I do a lot more planetary stuff. I've pretty much had to back away from everything else, and I get so many messages, and I
Oh,
apologize,
I'll
but
bet.
being one person and with a very heavy schedule, trying to find family time and doing other types of energy work, I keep it very limited to, my circle and my family, but I'm always happy to direct people to other folks who could help them.
Right. Right.
That I
Right.
can do.
Yeah.
So,
Interesting. I heard Zach Bagans had a hitchhiker attached to him. He's the what was that show? Paranormal something. What
Ghost
was that called?
Adventures.
Ghost
Ghost
Adventures.
Adventures.
Yeah. I had recently heard that he's become like a recluse because of that. And you think somebody with that knowledge would like know what to do. I don't know. He's got that haunted museum too, and I don't know. lot of
Well,
crazy stuff.
you can only be around those kind of items, for so long before something they're
Yeah,
there for a
right.
reason. They're there for a reason. So
Exactly.
hitchhikers, yes, I could see there being a lot of hitchhikers.
Yeah.
But also you have to look at the method of investigation when when somebody thank you. When somebody is investigating, you sometimes have to look at the method that you use. I demand you do this.
Yeah.
Hey,
Wayne
blah
just
blah
said he's
blah blah blah.
careless. Yeah.
See, yeah, and when you start demanding and saying, "Show yourself," this and that, careful what you wish for, because if
Exactly.
you're somebody of interest, all of a sudden, you are going to be followed for sure. And I think, you know, I really think that I get it. I get the whole the show thing. It has to be a certain way, but eventually, if you don't do something to protect yourself or be able to remove
Yeah.
these energies, the idea is to try to leave without an energy, obviously. But again, when you lean back into the museum, the guy has to be there,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
you're going to feel the effects of it. And it's also something, a word of warning to people who go to places that are haunted or places like this museum. Ground your energy. What grounding does is it makes you and your energy more focused. You're not as
Yes.
scattered. It's harder for things to grab onto you. Not that it's a foolproof way of it not happening, but you are going to at least go 50-50 with that. And then if you feel that you may have been followed, ground again. There's no rules to how many times you can ground in a day. There really
Oh,
isn't.
that's a good point too. Another thing I don't like is like there's a candle shop up here, not far from where I live. And in that candle shop, before they turned it into a candle shop,
Mhm.
a doctor lived there and he used to experiment on monkeys for, I think, the polio vaccine.
Mm,
And he did a
yeah.
lot of nasties there. And in the basement of that candle shop, they left like the cages where he housed the
Oh.
monkeys. And then they turned it into a sideshow circus kind of thing. And it's not really, they sell candles, but it's more, they turned it into like this haunted museum
Mm.
thing. And the last time I went in there, you could feel the energy vibe changed when they did that. And honestly, I left after 5 minutes because I was thinking about I don't want anything coming home because there's a lot of stories went on with that place. But I thought about how somebody transforming a place, a building, could invoke this to happen. Michelle, is that
Oh
could that
boy.
happen?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a good one. It's a good one to bring up. Here's the thing. When you have places like this, it's not always just what they're doing. The cages, you may pick up on a
Mhm.
lot of residual stuff. You may end up on the doctor might be around, and you may end up with energy from these primates who still ended up having
Yeah.
this energy, which is sad. Um, but here's the thing: income investigators.
Right.
With
Oh, tons of
investigators,
them now.
yeah,
Tons of
see?
them.
Investigators get in there and start making invitations, and who knows how many places they investigate that follow them in. That's why I always try to be careful, like, because of the type of families, like, situations I worked with. I had to be very careful, not what I call, like, the crossovers. So
Yeah, yeah.
I would try to completely ground myself and purge that before going into somebody else's home, because I didn't want that hitchhiker effect coming with
Sure.
me and bringing it to and creating another problem for somebody else. But when you're going into some of these locations that are open to the public, they're coming in with their own intentions.
Mhm.
They're investigators. They investigate all kinds of places. Were their methods, did they bother to clear themselves? Did the method work if they did? Like, there's a lot of different reasons and a lot of components
Yeah.
that are in place to amplify existing energy. Even if you go in and you feel fearful or aggressive, that imprints, that stays.
Absolutely. And the whole like the daughter died and he had a daughter that lived with him in this location and she had a not so great death and they take you on tours
Yeah.
to her bedroom and I'm upstairs and they opened up the door to her bedroom and I'm like, I am not going in there. Like, and they just turned it into a circuit. You're right.
Yeah.
They're not clearing themselves. They're not protecting it's just a circus, the whole thing. It's
Mhm.
not good.
There are places, you know, when you end up with, let's say, for example, I will use like one of the asylums. There's like all over the world. They have locations, asylums, old houses that you can go into. The fact that these locations still exist
Yeah.
is incredible. And sometimes it's like, if it's haunted, okay, can this generate money to help us maintain this property? Because things are going to
Right.
go wrong. You're going to need a roof, you're going to need a furnace, you're going to need plumbing, whatever the case may be. Structurally speaking, it is expensive. It is not cheap. Therefore,
Noted. Yeah.
hi, Jen. Therefore, this money goes in and gets recycled back into the location to keep this location standing. Like I said, the fact that it still exists is incredible, you know. But sometimes it doesn't mean like you have to be the places turn into something where there's just no value really for the location other than being the money generator. There's no
Right.
value for the spirits. There's
Right.
nothing. You can tell the good places from the bad places, and there are some people out there who have great intentions for their locations, and they maintain them, and they have respect for the spirit people that are there. So like it's nice when you can find a balance. But at the end of the day, people take things from these places without
Yes.
permission.
Do.
It doesn't
Yep.
take much, doesn't take much. You take that with you, you're going to have a bit of energy. Some of these grounded spirits get a bit protective about things like that.
Yeah,
And
I've heard of people taking stones and rocks from locations, on the ground even, and that
no,
triggered like a
no,
whole
no,
night.
yeah. No, I'm more of one of those like travel the world. I'm going to take soil from this incredible place, like maybe a haunted forest or something. But you don't damage the structure.
Right.
You don't take
Right. Right.
things per se. But no, it doesn't take much. Again, the stone, the residual that holds on to energy more than others, you know. So I think this is all things that you have to factor in. There's not just one component to a haunting, to a
Yeah.
hitchhiker, to residual. There's not one component. There are many components that all have to be factored in. I had somebody say to me, I get a lot of people who come to me when they're writing books or stories, and
Mm.
they'll say, okay, and they'll give me questions. And then I'm like, you may regret asking because it takes me a while because I will factor in some components of,
Yeah,
for
yeah.
one example, one question, and they write back and they're just like mind blown. I'm just like, it's not all the same. A lot of times you have to look at the people, look at the location, and then look at everything. You have to look at everything. It's vast, but that's what makes it so incredible to research.
Yes, yes,
I love
yes.
hagstones too, Jen. I have them from all over the world. I love them. I love them.
Oh,
Yeah. So, yeah. So, you just look at the different energy and look at the different components, and then it will answer a lot of your questions.
yeah,
Dissect it. Don't be afraid to dissect it.
yeah. Yeah, because that's what we did here.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have to really dig deep and, try to, get to the bottom of it. I haven't approached the talking to it yet phase because,
Yeah.
kind of in the midst of working
Yeah,
with it with you, so
but I don't blame you for that because if you don't know 100% what you're dealing with,
right,
sometimes any form of communication, as I say, is an invitation.
right. So I said,
So
"Let me zip it." I'm not gonna say a
I know.
word.
I know. I know. You
Not
know,
gonna talk.
I know. It's the
You know what
thing.
I wanted to ask you? You mentioned, and it sparked in me this epiphany of connection. Um,
Mhm.
you mentioned how churches, like everything was circular, the rooms,
And
and
some.
it seemed like
Mhm.
architecture was designed very circular back in the day. And now everything is square boxes. I had heard the reason that they did that is because souls get trapped in squares as opposed to circles, that in a circular area, a soul, a spirit has a lot more room and ease to move about. Whereas in a, I don't know how true that was, but
Mm.
they were talking about how they made everything square. Buildings, everything is square. Rooms are square. Do you think there's
Mm.
any truth to that, that they intentionally
I would have
might
to
have?
read the article, but I can tell you this, okay? If there's anything to this whole loosh thing and the frequency things, and we were experiencing a lot of man-made frequencies. We've been taken away from natural frequencies. There are
Yes.
some shapes that resonate better than others. You can look into old cathedrals and look at old stained glass. Sometimes
Yeah.
the colors, everything helps to generate a frequency. Every shape helps to generate a frequency.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So when you look at the combination of everything and how it used to be and how it is now, you have to
Right.
really look at the fact that we've not really, as great as technology is, when it comes to some things, we've gone backwards. But then
Yes.
again, there's information out there made privy only to some and not to all. And
Right.
that's why I say, with your frequency, there's always someone or something trying to harness it, trying to manipulate it. Do whatever you can because it's like that cherished diamond. Your energy is your diamond, and you have to really protect it. And you do so by keeping it elevated.
Yes, so well said. So true. And it really makes you wonder about all this tech that we live in, if
Yeah.
this acts as a barrier to that as well, to
Mhm.
you soul searching and becoming a more spiritually evolved person. Because you've got all these like repressive,
Mhm.
rays from 5G towers and God knows what else.
Mhm.
No more bells on churches. We've talked about that before, right? So, like, all
Resonance.
the harmonics of life just is sucked
Yes.
away.
Yes. It's everything. Like I said, technology, I mean, there's a lot of artificial frequencies and they do different things. We are made up of energy. Energy affects energy in
Yes.
one form or another, so, you just have to look. If you're in an area and it doesn't feel good, doesn't jive with your vibe, as I say,
Right, yeah, it doesn't jive
get
with your
then
vibe.
hey, Phil, then get out of the get out of the kitchen, just like
Yeah, yeah,
move yourself to a space that doesn't insult your energy, that
yeah,
vibes with it, that makes you feel good. It's just there's a really a lot to it. And the great news about it though is that it belongs to you and
right.
you can do things by grounding, go take a walk in the forest, just do anything. Go hug a tree, have a tree on the property, go sit at the base of the
Oh, I
tree.
love that. Love
Yeah, it
that.
does. It's natural. It's natural grounding. Walk bare feet in the grass if you're in an area or time of year where you can do that. That's called earthing, and that grounds
Yeah.
you. It's one of the reasons I enjoy the energy work that I do with the planet and working with all of
Mm,
these different energy lines and such because you connect to it. And that's
yes.
that's our Mother Earth. That's our mother. That sustains us. That is
Living entity.
Yes, she needs to be feeling. When she's feeling good, we're all feeling good. And it may only
Nice.
be within your space, but there are a lot of people out there who work very hard to keep the vibration of the planet stable and because there's just as many going the other way.
Oh, yeah. And all these things are so interconnected, like the Schumann resonance, and it's all
Yeah.
connected. Like you said, everything is energy and
Yeah.
frequency.
Mhm.
And, when you tap into one, you may be inadvertently tapping into something you're not aware of, too.
Yes.
Like, and that's why I mentioned that candle shop, because
Yes.
a lot of people innocently go in there and they don't know what they can bring home with them. And that like bothers me. Like, that really bothers
Mhm. You know what? That you have to be really careful. Not all the people, they just look at it, "Oh, this is a financial thing." I'll tell you, I have friends who've got haunted location. And one specific has this incredible haunted hotel, which is an old hotel, and it is amazing. It is just amazing. Sorry, I saw somebody lingering around. Anyway,
me.
much care goes into the spirits. So you go in there, and if you think you're going to upset the balance of things, guess what? You will be asked to leave. You don't get to come in and upset the spirits. You just don't.
Exactly.
So if you don't come in as a respectful researcher, you don't get to stay, and you certainly don't get to come back. That makes a difference. And that's a prerequisite before you even get your foot in the door.
Wonderful. And you have to treat, and we were kind of talking about that, you have to treat the living in the same way.
You do.
You know, you really do. Because
People
they'll look,
without bodies. That's all.
yes.
It's the only difference.
Yeah. They're the same personalities in death.
Correct. Because it's not the physical that makes up the individual. It is the essence. And it's the essence that returns. That's why there's just so much imprinting. Somebody had mentioned about ancestral, ancestral, the karma, the imprinting. Like, yes, yes, because it's those energies, and we are of those people. That line makes its way down. You get
Yeah,
bits and
yeah.
pieces of that. So, we are very much our ancestors with all the baggage and all the good
Yes.
stuff,
Oh
all the
my
bad stuff.
gosh.
So leave this place leave the world a better place than how you found it. Leave your mark, pay it forward, participate in your life, do it in a positive way. And you will find what you leave behind, okay, will be a whole other generation of people who may have it more together than we do.
Yeah.
You always
That
have
is
better
so
hope, right?
beautifully said.
Okay.
So true. And lastly, the Schumann resonance, and Hillbilly just mentioned it.
Yeah.
I have seen some graphs that it is going off the
Mhm.
charts these past few days. Do you think that affects the spirit world too,
Oh,
Michelle? And
yeah.
if so, how, if you don't mind me
It
throwing
affects
that
us.
question? Yeah, it
It
does.
affects us. It affects, I mean, energy is energy. So yes, it will affect all of that. It's a complete vibration that's just
Mm,
happening, from Gaia, right? So people have reported headaches, people have reported not
yeah.
sleeping, people have reported this extra crazy vibrations and
Yeah,
frequencies that
yeah.
you're hearing, which in turn affect moods, which in fact, if you don't sleep at night or you're just buzzing like crazy, you're sitting with a
Yeah.
migraine, it's like a spiral, like a
Yes.
downward
Got the
effect,
ringing in the ears going on.
domino effect. And that happens just, when the Schumann resonance just goes off the charts, and it does so for different reasons. If you start getting into things like CERN, HARP,
Sheesh. That's
well,
a whole show.
I know, but you fire that up, that affects
Yeah.
Schumann resonance. There's an
Yeah.
app that you can actually get. I have it where you can monitor the
Oh, what
Schumann
is that?
resonance
Oh,
regularly.
oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'll send it to you. Yeah, it's great. You can monitor the whole thing. It's from a facility in Russia actually that monitors it all.
Oh, yeah, I've seen screenshots of it, like, on
That's
Telegram.
exactly what it is. But they have different graphs that you can follow as well, not just the one they're screenshotting.
Does it tell you how to read it too, like, what each thing means? Or
It
because 'cause I'm
tells you what
looking
it
at it,
is.
and
You'd have to, yeah, you probably have to, if you wanted the actual definitions, you'd probably have to Google that. But the thing is they give you can look at one day and have 3, 4 different graphs for that and see how they all function together. It's wild. It's
it is
wild. But it
wild.
goes to show you there's a lot being done to this planet. And a lot of it also, even with our collective consciousness, we have to bear all that in mind. They don't look at the planet as being a living entity.
Yeah.
But it is. It's not, we're not just floating around on a hunk of rock. It's just there's so much more to it than that. Just look around.
Jeez. Yeah, and lastly, how do you not let all of it overwhelm you? Because it's a lot to take in. All of what we talked about today, all
Mm.
of your life's experience and everything that we go through as humans. Do you find that like your meditation, your grounding, just like tackling one thing at a time is the best way to not let it overwhelm us?
I wish I could say I had the time to meditate. I don't have a lot of it. And I wish I could say I was a good kid and grounded every day. I'm not, but I should. But I do when I have to. I do
Yeah.
when I have to. And I try. All I can do is pace myself. I'm one person, and I can't
Yeah.
wear all these different hats. It's
Right.
sometimes easier to get more overwhelmed with people energy,
Yes.
than all the other energies. The light work
Mm.
to me is amazing because you're tapping into the planet. It doesn't get better than that. It really doesn't. And just trying to focus at one thing
Mm.
at a time. My mind, the problem is my mind, even when people notice while I'm interviewing, like you see my mind working when my guest is saying something, and I'm like, and I like "Boop," from over here. Like, I'm sorry, like
Yeah.
like it gets ahead of me because it never stops working. Learn one new thing every single day, and that
Yes,
will take your focus
absolutely.
to different things. And it's a hard one to say, fear not. You know, the odds are stacked against you when it comes to
Mhm.
um not having fear instilled. Just look around
Yes.
you. You know, it says the life we all live in now.
All the trauma, all the
Yeah,
trauma.
all of it. You know, that's why I say if you can focus on as much positive as you can, you know, stay close to your family, stay close to your friends. My circles have always been small, and I'm very limited. I just posted something recently saying like my oldest friendship has been like what, like something like 54 years. My oldest friend that I've had a friendship with. The next one is like 41, and the one that I had, you know, before that was 30 years, but she passed away. Otherwise, we'd still be friends. It's just like stick to, you know, stick to people who don't insult your intelligence, stick to people
Exactly.
who aren't deflecting on you, stick to people who are who you know your energy's vibe.
Yes.
It's so important when I say like-minded, but your energy has to match. It has to, because if you start surrounding yourself with people and you're not vibing anymore, it's not that you can't be friends. It's not that you can't be good acquaintances, things like
Mhm.
that. But family is the same. We can't pick our family,
Absolutely.
but we can
Absolutely.
pick how much attention we give them. We can pick how much access we give them to us. Believe me, I have had to cut family off in the past, and e sometimes you do what you have to do just because your family. Cherish your peace because
Yes.
it's too few and far between now. You
Life's
just
too
don't.
damn short. Yeah.
It's too short.
Yep.
Just
Yep.
be just try to jive with the people in your life, because honestly, they're getting harder and harder to find people that you can really be connected to.
That is gospel truth.
Yeah,
It just is. It's just
yeah,
so true. And
yeah.
especially after 2020, something changed,
Mhm.
drastically, and then that affected
Fear
things as
also.
well.
Fear, you know, fear does
Fear.
that.
Yes.
You know, it's funny, before my mom passed, you know, like I've been, you know, I've had nothing to do with one of her sisters for decades. And she on her deathbed, "You just have to try to make up with your aunt."
Yeah.
Not going to happen.
Yeah.
This is what I'm asking." Okay. I tried. I couldn't. I'm just like, "I can't.
Yeah,
I can't. This is not a nice woman." So
exactly.
I'm
She won't be
sorry.
nice to death either.
I know. I'm sorry, but
Yeah.
sometimes your energies don't
Yeah.
jive. You've gotta
That's
make that
right.
choice. Sorry,
Hey,
mom.
there's no rule that says you have to, so,
Yeah, it was tough.
Jeez, yeah.
I did try. I did try for my mom. I did try.
Yeah.
And it didn't last long. I think maybe a week.
Yeah. Well, you
So,
made the effort. That's all that matters, right? You made
yeah,
the effort.
I
Gosh,
did.
Michelle, go ahead. What were you saying?
No, I said, "That's right. Yeah, tried.
Yeah,
That's
you
all I
made
can
the
do."
effort. Yeah. So tell us about your shows this week. What you got coming up? Share
Oh
the
god.
excitement.
Well, this week is gonna be a lot of fun, I think, because we have, well, tonight, and you have to tell me if I'm pronouncing this right. Jack,
Yeah.
is it Billick? What is it?
Biliac. Yeah.
Biliac. See, I gotta go sound that out now. Biliac. Okay. So I'm gonna do that right now. So, okay. Right there.
I know
Because
some of them are like impossible.
well, you
I
just
ask
don't
all the
know.
time. Yeah.
Yeah, we just don't know, you know, but I love this because we're going to be talking about, his incredible book, really, which is all about ancient technology, how important it is to preserve it. He's just, yeah, thank you. He's just wonderful. So, Lost in Time, is the name of the book, and basically covers all of that, and it's a spin-off of the show I do at Mark Ollie, which is wonderful.
Mm.
You know, but, of course, then we've got, Wayne Mallows and I talking about the shadow people phenomena, on
Ooh,
open discussion this coming Thursday. So that'll be laid back and
gotta watch
fun.
that one for sure.
Yes. And then Monday night, Real Cryptid Legends with Ron Moorhead,
Ooh,
myself, Daryl Denton, and boy, have we got a guest. A highway dogman encounter, which led to a shooting.
ooh.
That's what I said. Then I read the notes
That's
and went,
Friday, Michelle?
"Damn."
That one?
That's Monday night. Monday
Oh,
night.
Monday night. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Wonderful.
So
Wonderful.
there we go. That's the
Awesome.
week.
Awesome. Well, Michelle, it's always such a blessing. The 2 hours where does it go? I always say that because it's
I
so
know.
true.
I
And
know.
I think what you shared today is going to help a lot of people that may be feeling
Yeah.
exactly of the things we were talking about with these hitchhikers. And I take it very seriously because a lot of people just don't know what to do. And I think this will definitely make people think
Mhm.
and help them in so many great ways. Thank you, everyone in the chat. We love you dearly. And I love you dearly, Michelle.
Love you too. I love you too. Thank you. Bye,
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye bye.
Bye.
And thank you, everyone. And of course, a big thanks to United Public Radio Network. And don't forget to tune in tomorrow at the time changed. I have to catch it's 6:10 now. We're going to have the wonderful Stephen Bassett on, and we're going to talk about the current nature and state of disclosure. So that's going to be wonderful. And then Friday, at 3:10 p.m., we're going to have Barbara Gale on, and we're going to talk about an amazing near-death experience that she had that I promise you is mind-blowing. And we're going to talk about other things as well. So thank you all so very much. Have a blessed and beautiful rest of the day. Bye-bye.